Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Uncle Mad here, live on a Friday night, which has become apparently our new tradition on the channel here. Big stuff coming up this weekend. Obviously, the number one main event on the agenda for the weekend is Nashville SC returning to Geodis Park for match day 3 of the 2023 MLS season. We will be taking on Club de Foot Montreal, which I believe is now actually referred to as CF Montreal. I think that's like the fifth time they've rebranded themselves in like the last um, 3 years. So interesting there. It seems like they are kind of in a constant state of flux there up in Montreal. A lot of changes for them this off season coming into this year. Looking like it's a good matchup, a favorable matchup for the boys in gold, who will once again be the boys in black tomorrow. A little bit of a change up there with some weird sort of update communication thing coming out about the match tomorrow. Nashville SC tweeted it out today that they'll once again be wearing the black men in black Johnny Cash jerseys tomorrow because they got a request from MLS and Apple to wear the black as opposed to their normal gold to avoid a clash with Montreal's kits. Now, if you watched my early season video where I kind of went through and ranked all the jerseys, all the kits, the new kits for the 2023 MLS season, Montreal was not a part of that because they had some kind of weird issue with how they were able to, their planned new 2023 kit got delayed because there was some kind of issue with, they were trying to put some type of indigenous message on it to like celebrate the indigenous people of their culture. And I don't know if the message they tried to put on there was, not what they were planning it to be or exactly what happened there. But they ended up not having their kit roll out with the rest of the 2023 kit. So I believe the situation is they have only their kind of gray with little splashes of blue kit is the only kit they currently have available. A lot of people put up the comparisons online showing the two kits and saying they didn't really understand why the gray Montreal kit is a clash with the gold, bright yellow Nashville SC kit. And it really isn't. Like, if you just kind of look at it visually, like if you're just looking at them side by side. But, I can speak from refereeing myself that, like, we don't want to do anything that's going to make pro referee, who is, not always put out the best performances. We don't want to do anything that will make their jobs any more complicated. So if there's anywhere where anything's even close to being a clash, I'm for trying to avoid that. But the part of the tweet that MLS or that Nashville SC put out where they referenced that Apple had been involved in the request for the jersey change makes me wonder if there's some kind of broadcast element to this that's there where somebody did test of what the different kits look like on video in the 4K and the high definition that Apple's using, and the gray and yellow didn't look different enough on broadcast, because Apple putting in the request is the part that kind of threw me off there, because if it's just MLS, then it's you know weird. Why is yellow and gray a contrast? But if it's Apple being thrown in there, Apple was a part of the request, that tells me there must be something in the way they think it's going to look on the broadcast that it won't look as good if it's yellow versus gray as if it's black versus gray. So that's, Apple being in the mix on that is what kind of threw me off and made me think there's something about the broadcast more than the actual on-field clash of colors that is at play here. But no big deal to me. I love this jersey. Like I said, I think everybody loves this jersey. I do think the fan base wants to see the boys in gold back in gold at home to an extent. But I mean, you got this cool jersey. Let's rock it. Let's get it out there as much as we possibly can. We've got a good track record wearing it so far. So let's keep, the streak going, keep the luck going. Richard Greenberg in the comments says they are still Montreal Impact to me. Yes, another one of the many rebrands that club has gone through. As a TFC supporter, he says, I hope NSC beats our hated rival Montreal. I certainly do too. I mean, you look at everything on paper and there certainly should be right for the picking. They had, 3 key players depart in the offseason, including our former special Nashville SC boy, Alistair Johnson, and they really didn't do much to replace any of the players who departed. So, they're kind of in a spot where they don't really, have the quality they once had. They were one of the higher, talent-wise teams in MLS the last couple years, had a really good coach who also has left them to take over the Columbus Crew. They still got, Victor Wanyama, who's, one of those weird players. I feel like he's the type of player, profile player that Nashville SC should look to sign for maybe its DP spot, whether it's a striker or not, where he's too good for MLS, but he's still young, he's still really talented, and he just wasn't, able to keep going at the highest levels of Europe. So, like, it made more sense for him from probably a personal and financial standpoint rather than going from, like, say, leaving Tottenham and going to, like, Brentford. It was a better move for him to go from Tottenham to Vancouver or to Montreal. So to me, that's a very, the profile of player Nashville SC should maybe be looking in their next DP. I think a lot of people will point to like the kind of model of going after like young talented South American players. That's another good. I like the idea of a Victor Wanyama type player where experienced at a high level, but not quite good enough to play at the high level yet anymore, but still better than most. So he's going to be in the mix too. Still, he'll be a beast at midfield, which that could be a mismatch for us because we're still going to be without Annabelle Godoy tomorrow. That's going to be a very interesting decision about what Gary does with no Godoy still in midfield because we saw Dax last week, and I said it in the game day vlog. We might be looking at the Gary Neville game for Dax, where the game is just passing him by and his legs are just gone. Certainly hope not, because he can do a lot of good things still. He's still got abilities that we need in the team, but there was just some times where guys were just blowing by him. The first yellow card he got really early in the game where he just seemed to be completely caught off guard by how fast the play was moving around him. And, that was kind of his first kind of thrown into the fire game of the season. Maybe a couple of matches, he gets back up to speed and things are fine. But I'm certainly worried about Dax, which, is obviously even more worrying because we have such little depth in midfield. Godoy out injured immediately, missed a lot of last season, and that was a big problem last season. It's not the type of season where you're going to be wanting to rely on somebody like Dax McCarty to play a lot of games, because even if he's, even if his legs aren't completely gone, he's not somebody at this point in his career that you can consistently expect to start and give good performances. So that's certainly concerning in that regard to not have Godoy. Randall Leal out again as well, so that's one of our creative playmakers that we'll be without. So then that leaves the big question on the injury front is Hany Mukhtar fit enough to start? We saw him play 15 minutes the first game, 45 minutes the second game. Does that bump him up into line to play maybe 60 minutes and then come off if we've got a comfortable lead late, or, try to go the full 90 if we're still chasing the game late? I certainly hope so. Gary, in the past, he seems to be more cautious with bringing players back in. He'll often talk in his press conferences about, the fitness levels are there, he's been training, things are going well, and then we still won't see that player for like a month. So, especially this early in the season, with, so much to play for, you're not going to win or lose MLS Cup, this weekend. So, if he's still got any concerns at all about Hany, there's a good chance he still leaves him on the bench and protects him again. But I think, if he starts, that'll make this a pretty comfortable, should be easy game for Nashville SC, because you're looking at, Montreal. I watched the highlights of their first couple games. They've got some talent still, particularly some untapped talent that maybe has a chance to break through this season. But they haven't scored a goal yet. Nashville SC has yet to concede a goal, so that's certainly a matchup you would like to favor us as a team that's struggling to score versus a team that's keeping other teams from scoring. That's favorable for us. But it's, it's weirdly, I said you can't win MLS Cup at this point in the season, but I do think it's weirdly an important game for Nashville SC to get a result tomorrow, because probably the biggest issue last year that kept Nashville SC from being a top 3, top 2 team in the West was generally poor home form. It was bizarre. That's usually not the case across the board in MLS, and that had not been the case for Nashville SC through their first 2 seasons. But last year, breaking out in Geodes Park, I don't know if it was just getting used to the new facility. I don't know if there was like added pressure on the players playing on that new stage where, like, the crowd's way more on top of you at Geodes Park, obviously, than it was at Nissan Stadium. But I don't know what it was last season, but, obviously it was a problem. Won our first home match of the season against NYCFC week 1. If we can get another result at home tomorrow, 2 wins on the bounce at home, that's got to do well for the lads' confidence, for the team's confidence, for their belief to kind of get that nagging thing in the back of their head. If that's in their head, man, I don't get why we don't do well at home. Get that win at home tomorrow. Get 2 in a row to start the season. Can keep another clean sheet as well would be great. Just to be able to like really build that confidence, to really build that belief again that the castle, hell on the hill, whatever you want to call it, that it really is a fortress that's going to be tough for teams to come in and get a result at again the way we were at home in Nissan Stadium the first 2 seasons. So weirdly, in that regard, even though it's early in the season, you don't want to put too much importance on one game, but if we can kind of really kind of swing the mojo that we had last season of home results being kind of poor, that could be a huge thing for us starting out. One thing to get ready for this game that I kind of explored a little bit more on MLS Season Pass for the first time this week, and one cool thing I came across that I hadn't noticed before was if you go to the upcoming match on Apple TV's MLS Season Pass, there's little preview videos. There's one that they kind of take from the extra time feed that'll just be specifically focused on that match. There was a cool kind of hype / preview video narrated by Annabelle, not Annabelle, shoot, I can't think of his name. The guy who's former player of ours, who's now the radio commentator. I really hate that I can't think of his name right now. Jalil Anibaba. There it is. Got it. I think I probably still butchered it, but he's really good at like the media side of things. Like he's really well spoken, really well presents himself. It was a really cool video. It's like him kind of walking around downtown Nashville, talking about what the season's done so far, talking about what Montreal brings to the table coming in. So it was kind of a cool little quick way to kind of get a little bit more prepared for Montreal. I think it's good. That's gonna be something I'm gonna be watching every single week because, like I said, I plan to hopefully use the MLS Season Pass to learn more about the outside league. Like I feel like the first 2 years here, I've gotten to know Nashville SC, the way they operate the squad pretty well. I want to kind of expand now and start learning more about the rest of the league because that's been kind of a blind spot for me. Like I know some of the bigger teams who they have, obviously, but like a team like Montreal, I wouldn't have necessarily always known the players they had coming in outside of like Alistair Johnson. So that was really cool. I would encourage everybody to check that out. You just go to the game tab where it's like, Nashville SC versus Montreal or CF Montreal game upcoming. You click on that and it'll have a whole little series of videos meant to preview and hype up the upcoming games. So that was really cool. I still think some of the interface, some of the functionality for Season Pass needs a little work. It is really needlessly difficult to watch a full match replay. You have to like hold down a button on this one little tab and wait till it pops up and goes, do you want to switch to full match replay or just watch the 7-minute recap? And it's kind of like, why aren't they just both visually right there on the screen where you can click either one? Why do you have to find this weird secret hidden menu option to switch? But that stuff will work out over time. It's weird. I still haven't got to watch the MLS 360 kind of whip around show because first week I was at the Nashville SC game. Second week I went to Lost Patty for the watch party, and obviously they're going to keep it on the Nashville SC game. They're not going to throw up the watch around show. So it's kind of weird. Whenever Nashville SC is playing in that window, I don't really want to watch the whip around because I want to watch just Nashville SC. So I don't know when the next kind of game is where we might play in like the early window and maybe then watch it. But I'm looking forward to finally seeing that at some point in time. Somebody said that they do have that up as a replay now where you can watch the replay of the MLS 360 presentation. I did a brief look for it on MLS Season Pass today and I couldn't find it. Once again, navigation issues, being able to find stuff on there isn't the easiest. That's one thing that they need to kind of sort through and work out, I think. But so far, so good. Still on MLS Season Pass, each week I found something I really like about it. So that's only going to, I think, keep moving forward as we go. They do have like the MLS Extra Time podcast on there. It's kind of like their almost news breaking kind of show. But all the people on there are good. They're good at what they do. But it's like a video version of a podcast, which saying this now feels a bit hypocritical, but I really wish they would like do a full-blown like Sports Center style studio show, like put it up there on Monday afternoon where it's like a polished studio recap of the weekend that was in MLS. I'd like to see that, and I think I saw Tom Bogert on another YouTube channel doing an interview, and he said that that's something they're building towards, but I think there's maybe some coordination about getting some of the broadcast talent who maybe has lived outside of New York or Los Angeles, or wherever the studio is, getting those people moved to where the studio is before they can kind of get that up and going. But that's something that may be coming down the line, which I'd like to see. Is the game in Montreal or Nashville? It is in Nashville. So we'll be there tomorrow. There will be a live game day vlog from that. Some mic issues. I don't know what that's going to be. I'll try to enunciate a little bit better to try to overcompensate from or to overcome that. But who knows? These things. I need like a producer. I need somebody who actually knows what they're doing when it comes to the technology of these things, because I just kind of jump on here, throw it on, and hope for the best. But the only other thing I wanted to talk about with Nashville SC is this weird, if you're following the news around the club, Nick Depay's situation. Nick Depay is a center back that we acquired from Los Angeles Galaxy, essentially to be our third center back. We traded Dave Romney to New England Revolution. The idea is it's time for Jack Maher to step up to be Walker Zimmerman's number one partner in the back line. Nick Depay was brought in to fill that kind of open spot as a third center back. Has been hurt from the get-go. And yesterday in his press conference, Gary Smith announced that Nick had surgery on his Achilles, and there was also some weirdness about the way Gary kind of was talking about the situation. I've got his direct quote here because I wanted to read it exactly because of how bizarre it sounds. Gary said, "We've really not seen anything of Nick Depay, who said he had surgery on Friday." Who said he had surgery on Friday. Now, that could just be Gary, British guy, kind of a weird way of talking, but like Nick Depay called up the club and was like, "Hey guys, what's going on? I had surgery last week on my Achilles. Don't know when I'm going to be able to play." Like when he says he said he had surgery on Friday, like did he just go out and have this surgery and the club didn't even know he was going to do it? That I don't know. It definitely sounds weird in that. He went on to say, Gary Smith did, that's a completely different story in what went on with the recruitment of that player, which I think player and club are very disappointed about. I don't really know what that means, but there's something he's implying that was a little off about going out and getting him, and that both the player and the club are disappointed. I don't know if I'm reading that the Achilles injury was already there and maybe was downplayed as the acquisition was going down, or if he was, I don't know. It sounds like there's something where for some reason they did not want I don't know. That's just a weird way to phrase that. That there was a different story in what went on with the recruitment of that player, which I think player and club are very disappointed about. That is very bizarre. I don't know that we'll ever get the full story of what that is, but Nick Depay was put on season-ending MLS's version of whatever you want to call injured reserve, where he's essentially off the roster. So it opens up a roster spot to where Nashville SC can hopefully go out and find a center back to kind of fill that gap, because we're definitely going to need that. We've got an international break coming up at the end of this month. Well, it's not a break. MLS plays through it, but Walker Zimmerman will almost certainly be going out with the national team. And right now, we don't have a obvious player who can step in and fill in for him in whatever matches he might miss while on national team duty. So that's certainly not good. That's certainly troubling. Like I said, it opens up a roster spot and it gives a little bit of cap relief to be able to make a move to replace Nick Depay. But, I mean, there's not exactly a lot of quality center backs just hanging out on their couch waiting to get a phone call from Nashville SC, so I don't know what could be done unless there's a player at one of the other clubs who's just looking to get out of his club, and maybe we can make a trade for a player who's unhappy in their situation or something like that. Getting some good tips here on how to fix the audio stuff. I'll definitely try to implement some of those things in future live streams, but I think we're just going to have to push through on this one. I'll wrap up with Nashville SC. I think it should be a win for Nashville SC, especially if we get Haney back. If he starts, I would think it's a comfortable win. If he doesn't, you're going to have to find some other form of attack. CJ Sapong's on the way back too, but I wouldn't expect him to start. He seems like he's about a week behind Haney in his progress. I'd be interested to see if maybe we might switch to a midfield three. Gary likes to play a 4-4-2, 4-1-1, 4-4-1-1 kind of variation. I think if you put Anunga, Dax, and Sean Davis in the midfield together, that could be an interesting mix because Sean Davis is just a steady guy who's always in the right spot, who can recycle possession, keep the ball moving. Um, Dax, he still has the ability to be kind of the playmaker from midfield. He can make the key passes, he can pick out the passes, he can distribute really well. He just maybe doesn't have the legs to do the running and the defensive work. But if you pair him with Brian Anunga, who just runs around nonstop, covers every blade of grass, that could be an interesting look to pair those three together in midfield. So if you don't have Henny ready to start, go those three in midfield, Fafa and Schaffelberg side of Teal. That's not a bad lineup. That's a lineup I wouldn't mind to see. I feel pretty comfortable with Nashville SC winning tomorrow. 2-0, I think would be a reasonable scoreline to expect, but we'll see what happens. I'll be there live. I'm going to do a game day vlog from there with hopefully better audio quality than this has. I had a really good streak of audio quality too going, I think, but whatever. It happens. Not much else I wanted to talk about really. The Titans, I was going to hit on that just a little bit. I mean, it's been a weird offseason because like each one of the cuts they've made has kind of stung, kind of like hurt a little bit, but they were all moves we kind of knew were going to happen, so it's not like anything was really surprising or shocking. You know, Lawan, we kind of knew from the moment he tore his ACL that he was probably done as a Titan. Bobby Woods, you know, we saw he was just nothing throughout the season, so you knew they were going to try to get that cap hit off the books. Bud Dupree, same thing, just too many injuries, not been able to be on the field enough. Randy Bullock doesn't have the leg power to justify what his cap number was. The Ben Jones one kind of hurt today. I think we knew he probably was not going to be back on the team next year. I think, I don't know if hope is the right word, but would have liked to have seen him retire as a Titan and just kind of be able to go out as one of us, but indications are is that he plans to keep playing, and so the team had to make the decision to release him and, you know, get that number off the books as well. So it's weird because it's all put a little doom and gloom because there's so many cuts, there's so many releases, and we're not, you know, to the point where we're getting those new faces. I think once we get to the draft, once we get into free agency and we start seeing how the roster is going to be rebuilt, what new players are coming in, that'll certainly ease some of the pain that's going through Tennessee Titan fans right now. There's also rumors that came out that they are potentially listening to offers or actively shopping Derrick Henry, which might just break the fan base. I mean, I can, from a devil's advocate point of view, I can understand why they would consider trading him just because, you know, he's probably at the peak of what his value will be as a trade asset. And if you're just kind of looking at it's time to kind of reset the whole thing, get any value you can, get as many draft picks as you can to sort of help with the rebuild process. But that'll be one, if they trade him, it'll be like the Steve McNair trade all over again, where it's just an icon, a hero of the franchise being shipped out, and that'll really, 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 I think, hit the fan base hard if that one goes through. There were reports that came out after the initial reports that wasn't true, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's, you know, a grain of salt to the truth. Like, are they actively like going out and trying to get rid of him? I doubt that, but are they, you know, asking teams who inquire, you know, what they'd be willing to give up for Derrick Henry? I would be shocked if they're not doing that with just about every player. I said it in my Titans kind of end of season wrap up summary that I thought there was maybe only 2-3 players on the team that were guaranteed to be back, and I said Ryan Stonehouse, Treylon Burks, and maybe, and I'm not even so sure about this one anymore, Nicholas Petit-Frere. I think everybody else is potential to be cut. Everybody else is potential to be traded, and I still think that. So, you know, got a lot of offseason still to go to see how everything comes together, what Rand Carthon continues to do once, you know, because right now he's just having to do the dirty work of clearing up the cap, and, you know, we're still about a week away from where the actual signings and free agency can start, and then we've got the draft next month, so I think once we get to that point and can see how he's going to actually build the roster, that'll kind of hopefully improve the mood of the fan base, but you never know. Last thing I want to talk about was I wanted to kind of circle back to AEW. Last week we previewed the Revolution pay-per-view show. Really good show. Like I said, the matches were all great. They were all really entertaining. Still lacking a little bit in terms of like the kind of outside the ring stuff that you need from wrestling. They came back this week with Dynamite, and I was kind of disappointed in the show because we got Ricky Starks coming off his big win over Chris Jericho, and now he's going to feud with Juice Robinson, who I believe has lost every significant match he's been presented in since coming to AEW Ring of Honor. So you go from, you know, big win over Chris Jericho to a guy who's been kind of an enhancement talent since he came in for the most part. But the interesting thing was he came out to the Bullet Club music, so I don't know if that indicates that there could be more of a Invasion Bullet Club presence coming to AEW. That would certainly be something interesting I'd like to see. It looks like we're going to just keep the Hangman and John Moxley thing going. They're involved in a six-man tag match next week. I thought we were going to wrap that up and let them both move on to new things, but we're just going to keep repeating things, it looks like. And really, a rematch somewhat of the trios match. Elite getting a shot at the House of Black in a triple threat trios match with Jericho Appreciation Society already being there. So once again, I'm sure it'll be very entertaining, a really good match, but it's kind of retread of what we've already seen. I was kind of hoping, I like the Elite together, but I would love to see the Bucks go back into pure tag team action and see Kenny go back into the singles scene. And the saddest part of Dynamite this week was poor Wardlow. They have just, man, from how hot he was going into his match with MJF last year to where he's at now, cut his hair, make him look like just a normal guy. Sad story of all his stuff getting stolen and him having to fight the match in street clothes. Lost the title to Joe unceremoniously. Just won it back from Joe and then loses it to Powerhouse Hobbs like 2 days later. I mean, Wardlow's as dead as you can be dead. He has to be turning heel or something like that coming up because you just can't be a babyface with all the sad sack bad stuff that they've put him through. So I guess he's probably having to turn heel to save his character and try to get back to what he was. But I mean, he could have been like their main guy, if it weren't for it's mostly MJF's fault for the weird way he kind of stole the thunder from Wardlow with his whole walkout and stuff like that, and then his promo the next week. But the booking of Wardlow outside of that hasn't done him any favors either, and he went from being a guy that they could have been building towards being their big top babyface young star to he's just flat and dead right now. So still kind of on the negative side of AEW for me right now. I haven't been really impressed and really, with their overall product. Like I said, the in-ring work, the matches are almost always really, really good, but you need a little bit more than that in professional wrestling to really, elevate your product. Like on the other side, WWE is as hot as they've ever been, and it's not because of anything to do with match quality. It's because they've this insanely popular storyline that they've been running with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline, and that's the problem. It's like AEW doesn't really have any storylines, and the ones they do, they don't necessarily even do a good enough job elevating them and building them up. Like the Jungle Boy Jack Perry Christian thing, there was obviously a very heated issue there, but they really just didn't really sell it enough. They didn't really build it up enough. Like Daniel Bryan's promo on Dynamite this week sold the storyline of him and MJF's feud better than anything they did in the build up to the match, which that's like reverse logic, is you should have sold everything up before you get to that. So I don't know, they're in a weird spot. I think they're getting ready to really start building Adam Cole up as like a big star. He's going to be a part of their reality show. He's returning to the ring the night that debuts, March 29th. So I think they're kind of almost treading water while they get ready to sort of light a fire under him and maybe a few other people. But we'll see what happens there. I'm going to keep watching because it's not like it's bad. It's just I'm disappointed in that it's kind of dropped off from like the heights that it was at maybe like a year ago. So whatever. Don't want to dwell on negative. Question in the comment, will Man U give up another 7 goals this weekend? I will say this. If Manchester United gives up 7 goals to Southampton, who, if they're not at the bottom of the table right now, they've got to be close. I haven't looked at the table in a minute, but I know they were as bad as any. I think they've sacked like 7 managers this season trying to get it right. But if they score 7 goals on United, then we're going to have to like just analyze the whole Eric Ten Hag is the second coming situation that we've kind of been feeling for the last couple seasons. I really, the more I thought about it with the Liverpool game, that game sucked. There's no way losing 7-0 to your biggest rival is not gonna suck. There's just no way around it. But it was such a weird game where it's just like everything went in for Liverpool. It's just like the most. They were really good. They took advantage of every opportunity they got, but it wasn't. It was weirdly like the least like I remember like the game I would compare it to was United beat Arsenal 8-2 back in like what was that, like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. And that was a game where we really like just completely kicked the crap out of Arsenal. We were just running by them nonstop. Tom Cleverley looked like he was the second coming of Paul Scholes. It was at the height of like Ashley Young and Nani looking like good players. Danny Welbeck looked like he was going to be the next like Eric Cantona, and we just ran roughshod in that game. And it never really felt like Liverpool was just completely running through us. It was just like every time they got an opening, they finished the goal. They just scored. Like I saw a crazy stat that like an XG is kind of an overrated thing to me, but it is still very interesting to kind of look at it and see how it reflects in games. United yesterday in their 4-1 win over Real Betis in the Europa League had a higher XG in that game than Liverpool did in a game where they scored 7 goals, which that also kind of to me says like, yeah, XG is a little bit of a wonky, weird thing. Maybe it's not something that we need to necessarily fully hang our hats on and fully embrace, but it is an interesting stat to just kind of look at and sort of observe. But I don't know. I think they should comfortably beat Southampton, although Southampton did beat City earlier this season, so they're a team that can kind of, the time, I guess, find something to be able to get a result if they need to. I don't know. Like I said, if United lose that one, and I wouldn't say press the panic button. If they lose 7-0 again, definitely press the panic button. But they're in such a weird spot because they've played so many matches. Like they're playing like every 2 days, and it's been really difficult for Ten Hag to rotate the squad because a lot of the matches have been cup matches or matches against big teams like Liverpool or City. So he's felt like he had to play really strong teams almost every time out. Like West Ham last week was one of the first times we saw like somewhat heavy rotation of the squad. Could see it against Southampton because Southampton's going to be the weakest team we've played in a while. So there could be some squad rotation there, which could, open up a door for Southampton to have something out of the game. But I would be shocked if they're able to get a result. I would be shocked if it's not very similar to what we saw against Real Betis yesterday, where it's a, comfortable 3-0, 4-1, 4-0 type win for Manchester United. Hopefully, because that's the big thing they need to do. When you lose a game the way they lost to Liverpool, you just have to really come back out swinging. You got to get your confidence back. You got to get mojo back. I think it went a long way, the result they got yesterday against Betis. Got to keep that going against Southampton too, though. But there's another fun thing that's going on this weekend. Also have the Oscars on Sunday. I did a full vlog giving my predictions for the Oscars, even though I haven't seen any of the movies that were nominated. So if you want to see just somebody who's completely clueless about those movies, predict which ones are going to win, go back and watch that. It's on my channel. I'm going to wrap this up. Apologies for the audio issues in this one. I had a really good streak where we weren't having any audio issues, but who knows? When you're lo-fi like me and you're just throwing stuff out there, it's going to happen from time to time. Thanks for watching through the issues, those of you that did. Subscribe to the channel, turn the bell on for notifications, because like I said, we'll be at the match tomorrow from Nashville SC, CF Montreal. There will be a game day vlog coming from that. Got a few other exciting things planned this weekend that'll be coming up in some videos, so don't miss any of them. Stick with us. Come on, you boys in black. Let's go get the club de foot in Montreal and send them on a first class. No, not first class. Put them on a coach trip back up north. Good night.